Hello and welcome to Silver Tears Tarot. Today we're going to be answering the question that has been coming out in all kinds of ways about the two of you coming together. Now, a lot of you are asking specifically, when will we come together? Will we come together soon? It's usually some form of that question. So that's what we're going to address today. As always, it's going to be a general reading that I'm doing for the collective. So it's for all people, all signs who are part of the collective. So it's not going to resonate with everybody, but if it resonates with you, you may want to check and see if there are some other messages out there that might resonate with you as well. Something else that you might be interested in hearing, and you may even want to subscribe. So, what we're going to be looking at here is kind of the best we can do to understand the circumstances around the two of you coming back together. So we know that with tarot, time isn't necessarily a great thing to ask because there is kind of no time in tarot. A lot of times when we ask the question when something's going to happen, we get the response, "Here's what it takes to make that happen," or "This is what it would look like." And so we're just going to ask, we're going to look at kind of what's happening in the energy, but we're also going to look at what we need to know or what you can know about when you'll come back together. So this is where we'll start with this. Let's go ahead and get that energetic backdrop. And so this is just kind of the energy that you guys are swimming around in right now. We've had this really intense full moon energy going on that allows you to rectify some things. You have an opportunity to make a decision, and that's also kind of the energy that's happening here around you right now. It's the energy of making a decision, but it's a quick decision, but not a rash one. This is a transformative one, and it's you making. We saw this in yesterday's reading. So if you go back and watch the full moon reading, there was talk about a decision that you would be making, like a crossroads you were going to come to, where you would have an opportunity to make a relatively quick decision, and it's going to be a decisive move down a certain direction of that crossroads. Not necessarily that they're not the same, but it is a decisive move. This is that same sort of feeling. So it's a transformative decision that you have coming in this energy. That's the kind of energy that you guys have right now. There's the death card. So there's one that came out yesterday in the reverse, and as something that didn't, it was something that you need to change, but you might or might not make the decision to change it when you get to that crossroads. This is something that you are making a decision to change, or something that is changing. But the good thing about this one is that when you let something end, something new grows in its place, and that's the type of thing that happens here with the death card. You see the death um, element of it, but you also see the phoenix rising up as part of this cycle as well. So, along with the something that is changing in a definite decision, the energy of being able to make a definite decision, you start to learn where your efforts, where you might want to point those efforts. Your person is having a similar situation because we're all swimming around in the same kind of energy. But this is particularly the energy around you during this portion of the soulmate situation. So there's that feeling of the missed opportunity and the lost time that seems like it hangs like a millstone around both of your necks. But particularly strong on your person's side is this limit that they run into with regard to emotion. So they run into a limit with regard to emotion that is part of what caused them to miss this opportunity, and part of why this feels like this feeling of wasted time. So hopefully this change is helping to move in a direction of feeling like less wasted time. I'm curious to understand what's happening with this limitation of emotion in your person, though. And that's maybe something that we, depending on what comes out here, we might look into it a little bit more deeply in the extended. So let's see what else wants to come out here. And this is, remember, we're just looking at the energy around you right now. So it's pretty intense. The energy around yesterday's full moon was once again intense. There's one thing you can say about the full moon. When it gets in there and wants to be transformative, there is not a force that can stop it. It is very much here to help you, provides you an opportunity to work through some emotional pieces that probably have needed it for a while, but this is a chance for a big step forward. So here we have the Knight of Cups, which is potentially communication. That's kind of a big deal, depending on how this one plays out. So some of you have recently been in communication and it hasn't gone especially well. There was this energy of really wanting to, almost a frantic desire to be in communication. For some of you, that hasn't let up, and the communication will continue to unfold. But for many of you, unfortunately, they still aren't really ready to go forward with that. So even with the desire to communicate, you may get some more of the folks that reach out and kind of drunk text you. We had a few of those. Or people that when you reach out really don't give you very much of a response. And so this is the energy of continuing to want to have that conversation. It may not result in the type of conversation that you're ultimately hoping for, but the energy is definitely there for it. So some of you who might not be in the same place on this timeline, I mean, no one is in exactly the same place, but some of you are going to be farther advanced than others, and you've maybe been through this cycle, even with this person, multiple times. And you know that your conversation with them is likely to yield something different than what it did last time. So we have kind of one of the things that you're working against is the fact that they really value their daily balance with the Two of Pentacles here. And with the Two of Swords, it's particularly difficult for them to actually make a decision on this. So whereas there's a desire to reach out and talk to you, there's also a really strong desire to maintain the status quo in their energy, which also means not necessarily executing on this decision. So there's this energy to strongly move forward towards something, to execute on a decision and just do it. Just do it. And it is not necessarily playing out. So your person is feeling a little bit resistant to that energy, whereas I'm not convinced that you are. I feel like you are more ready to be aligned with that energy and not struggle against it. That's kind of the sense that I get. Okay, so seeing what else wants to come out. Nope, for this one. Sometimes when the card comes out upside down like that and it's just a single card, I do take it. Back when I first started reading online, I often took it. So we have the Prince of Swords here. I was just waiting for this one. And this one, I can feel it in the Queen of Swords. I can feel that same sort of energy from the Prince of Swords. So the Prince of Swords is like the Knight of Swords. It's the equivalent of the Knight of Swords, and it is again with the transformative energy, again with the decisive forward movement. There is communication potentially involved, but it is not necessarily a simple thing. It's just a straightforward thing. So the desire is very straightforward, but the action may not end up being so. That's what I'm getting out of this energy right here. And even on your side, there may be a little bit more of a tendency to hesitate rather than to charge forward than there sometimes is. Like you've just had enough of this. And I get the sense that you're not necessarily wanting to charge forward because it's maybe not worth doing so. That same Five of Swords that we saw come out in the moon reading yesterday, it's like you're not doing that. You're not having the Five of Swords. You're not jumping into a battle that it doesn't make any sense to win. Okay. So let's ask the question then about what you can know about when you'll come together. So this is not necessarily, I mean, if anything about timing wants to come up, or hey, it's really close wants to come up, or there's a delay, then that's welcome. But we have noticed that when we ask specifically about time, we tend to get, hold on now, here's what has to happen. It could take 2 weeks, it could take 2 months, it could take 2 years. It depends on how quickly you move through it. So knowing that, let's see what comes up. If it wants to give a little bit more specific time frames or information, then we will look into that as well. I will just be happy to understand what wants to come out here. And we have, interesting, so we have the High Priestess, but it's coming out in reverse. So this is the meaning for this one is twofold right now. This one has a lot to do with not being able to connect with that higher self and with that intuition, but it also has to do with secrets that are coming out. So remember at the beginning of the year, we had all of those Ace of Swords kind of energy that wanted to come out for you. And so instead here we have, it's still that energy is there. So the truth has come out, but it's not necessarily been absorbed by your person. And that's kind of what's different about that. So this is truth that it's out. You have a choice, but to absorb it or not to absorb it. And it has to do with the two of you coming back together. It also says that your person's silence tells you about how ready they are to come back. That's okay. So this is really telling us that there is a need for your person to remain silent in some cases, or not everyone's person is remaining silent. I want to be clear about that. We have some folks who are in actual communication and not in complete separation. And then we have tons of people who are in separation. But regardless of the way that the situation looks, the communication has fallen off. The communication is not good, and they are clearly not coming forth. So what we're seeing here is that they're making every effort not to come forth, but the information is out there, and it's like they're choosing not to. They haven't been able to absorb it all, and so they're kind of choosing not to deal with it entirely at this time. The Seven of Swords speaks to the lack of really the lack of self trust that your person has, but there's also some modicum of self trust, lacking self trust on your part that is mirroring them and making you doubt yourself. We saw a little bit of this yesterday. You do still see very much that things are driven by love. And not just the traditional romantic love in that sense, but the broader, more soul sense of love. The two of you are sitting together in love, even though you're not able to necessarily work that out in the physical realm. We have the Knight of Wands showing this desire, and we see it over here in this energy too, but this desire that pulls them toward you, pulls each other toward each other. Because honestly, I think at this point you're getting to a place, a lot of you are getting to the place where if you could walk away from this, that would probably just be the easiest thing. So you have this Knight of Wands energy that pulls you in and then pushes you away, and pulls you in and pushes you away. And it's this cycle that seems like it's happening over and over. And it is very much related to this Princess of Pentacles, which is again coming out here in the reverse. We've seen a lot of this card. Particularly, we've seen a lot of it lately. It's the equivalent of that Page of Pentacles, Page of Coins, Earth energy, but it's about that learner, that ability to learn, the openness to learning. There is something that is too difficult to learn, too big, too complex, requires being slept on at least a few more times. It's got that sort of sense to it. And it's not necessarily something that isn't right. It's staring your person right in the face, and they are having a hard time absorbing the situation regardless. I dropped a card, but it's not part of the reading. It fell face down. You never know. For a while, they were falling only face down, and then I'd have them fall. Sometimes I get some that really fall face up and want to be part of the reading. It's like it's jumping right out. Okay, so getting these back where they were. We have the Ace of Wands that has come out here in the reverse. So there's something about waiting for this person that is stunting you in other ways. There is a lesson here for you to be focused on something that is within yourself rather than focused on the timing of them coming back, focused on them even coming back, because they have some things that they've got to work on that continue to bring them your direction. But it's almost like you should focus elsewhere until they get to a place where they stop doing this rubber band and bouncing thing. Otherwise, it's just going to take you through the ringer. And you have some things that you can be focused on learning in the meantime. So we'll look at that, what that is here, over here in just a minute. However, we've got the strength card that comes out. So this is there are a couple of really cool things happening here with the strength card. There is the strength card always is something somehow relevant to how much fear is winning out. So when you have the strength card in the upright, it's telling me that strength is winning out over fear. But the reason that it is because you guys are not new to this. You're not new to this process. This is a very shared energy. Neither of you is new to this process. And so it's got its ups and downs, because in some cases, it's part of the reason that they're so good at not calling you back or not texting you. But on the other hand, it's part of the reason that it's becoming more likely that they're going to be capable of it, because they are actually regaining their strength, and they're feeling like There's something in this that is not yet over. So the world is the last card in the tarot. If you've got the major arcana of the tarot, starts with the Fool, and it's the Fool's journey that goes along 22 cards. So the Fool is number 0 and the world is number 21. So there are a total of 22 cards, and the world is that happy ending. It's that place that you go when you pass judgment. The transformation is complete. It's the end of that cycle. Here we have it in, excuse me, here we have it in the reverse. And it is showing that sense of we know things aren't over yet. There's that nagging feeling just constantly wanting to come back, and it's actually getting in the way of other things. And so they are doing their level best to get rid of it and to ignore it as much as possible. In some cases, they're doing things so that they can ignore it. They definitely are exuding, I want to be left alone and I don't trust this situation. But there's also a sense of them bouncing back and forth because they feel like they've got that rubber band. That they keep being drawn in, but then they keep being pushed away, and it's a very difficult thing that basically distracts both of you from being able to jump into something new. Not necessarily something new romantically, but something new energetically that helps to redirect and rebalance your energies so that you can come back and do better with this situation than before and hopefully have it be more successful. So you've got reconciliation, and then you've got a potential for reunion on top of it. And so if you're going to come back for reconciliation, these are the things that kind of have to happen. You guys know that need is there. You know that need is there. The strength is building, but there is definitely this feeling of having to remove that emotional noise, because there are secrets that have started to come out, but it's like you haven't fully digested those yet. So it's hard to figure out how to move forward. So let's look at how to move forward. And we're going to look directly, specifically at how to move forward in the near term for you. So this is where you want to be focused as, thinking about all of this that has come through. Where do you really need for your focus to be? What feels right? Okay, so we have the Ace of Swords, and this is maybe not surprising. We just talked about this Ace of Swords energy being out there, and this truth, this sword of truth, it's really about here. It's holding it out there, and it's ready for you to take it. You and your person. We've been seeing it since the beginning of the year pretty heavily. We know that the issue here is not so much that the truth isn't being presented to you, it's that that sword isn't being taken. It's too much to take in. It's not, no judgment either, because this is not an easy sword to take. You guys already did all the easier stuff earlier on, and now you're kind of stuck in the mire, stuck in the stuff that doesn't want to allow you to get through it as easily. You're definitely stuck together in this. So you've got the Lover's card, which talks about a choice in love. But it talks about the choice being not necessarily such an easy one. So moving together, you're constantly being brought back together by the energy, but you're also being told, okay, so if you want to go that way, there are certain lessons that you're going to have to be able to handle. You have a self-worth lesson in there. Your person has a vulnerability lesson in there. There's more to it. But there is first this message of learning how to pull yourself apart from the situation, separate yourself out from the situation. So usually the Four of Cups is a card of I don't really want it, and it's not so much that. This is more of a card of I don't really want. And so it's interesting because I don't think it usually comes out for us that way. It's usually more of a nonplussed sort of feeling, but here it's very much everything is equal. So it's sitting in if one of the meditations that I used to do that was a pretty visual meditation when I was younger. I was a rock in a stream that was a fast moving stream, and then the water was just rushing past me. And that's the sense that I get from this Four of Cups. Now, this Five of Pentacles in the reverse is all about it's all about healing from something that the two of you have touched upon. Your person has opened this fear in you. It has to do with abandonment, rejection. It's the reason that being ghosted or being left or any of that hurts so much. And you are learning it in double time. You're being given the opportunity to learn this in kind of an extra fast way because you've learned it before. You've been on this roller coaster, even with them in some cases, for some time. but now you've got this guidance. We saw the Hierophant come out yesterday, or the equivalent of the Hierophant come out yesterday in that moon reading, and it was all about you're going to receive the spiritual guidance during this time. Your best bet is to listen to it. This spiritual guidance is going to be part of what moves you through something that feels like it's going very quickly, but really it's just that if you want to navigate this situation in such a way that you don't kind of get buried in the rubble as you're going, down the mountain in a landslide, here's how you're going to have to run on top of everything. There's going to be information there to help you do that. Oh, and by the way, if you end up losing your balance a little bit there, it's going to be okay. You are not starting at zero. So we've got two cards that want to come out here, and the rest of these are going to go back. We have the Three of Cups in reverse, and we have the Queen of Swords in reverse. So there's a difficult time coming for you as far as having to decide how you're going to make a decision that comes up. We know that. We know from yesterday's reading there's a difficult decision that has to be made, and you are not necessarily going to want to make it quickly or decisively. But if you look within, what you're going to discover is that you are making it relatively quickly and decisively. Now it's just a matter of how you behave as a result of that realization and how you make it happen, how you push it through. It is not necessarily going to be something that involves other people. It is not necessarily going to be something that is a social event, figuring out how you want to manage the situation that is coming to you. This is going to be something that feels very lonely. It's going to be a situation that just you manage, but it's a very strong sense of management that you will have with the seven of the chariot. It's the seven card in the major arcana, but it's all about not necessarily, in this case, not necessarily knowing which direction to go, but going anyway. It's got that feeling of I've got this one deck where every time the chariot comes out, it feels like you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Things have to change. It cannot stay the way that it is right now. That is something that is happening in your life, and it is but a training ground brought on by this situation with your soulmate, and yet something that's going to help you as you work through this. So you need to deal with this before you can have your person coming back to you with any level of success. And meanwhile, they've got some things that they need to deal with. Both of you have one of these. This is the Tower, which of course is talking about that big tumultuous emotional upheaval kind of experience that happens somewhere. You make a choice, and all of a sudden, this tower, it comes down, or it's just a decision is made, and this is not an easy one. It's something that maybe isn't what you identify with, isn't how you think about yourself. But you're being forced into a position where you're going to have to do something a little bit different. And I want to grab you an oracle card from the Osho Zen Tarot. This is a tarot deck, but it feels a little bit like an oracle deck to me sometimes. And so we're getting the sense of compromise. This is earth energy, and it's that sense of like the Six of Pentacles. Okay, so it's that give and take of energy, and this one, it's called compromise. That's what the card actually says, which makes a good amount of sense given the type of energy that's coming from it. But just recognize it's not necessarily a compromise between you and someone else, but it is a compromise between energies. And you're going to be put in a position to have to authorize that compromise and be the person standing behind it, whatever that means. There's a decision that you're going to play a huge role in. You've got to play this out before you're going to be able to really unlock the magic of coming back together with your person, even as far as reconciliation is concerned. So this is something that we'll address next. Let's look at this when we get into the extended. Definitely, we're going to look more deeply into what's happening with you. We're also going to look more deeply into what's happening about, your person and what needs to happen for the two of you to come together. We're going to kind of take these two piles together, and then we're going to find out how your person is feeling about things. So that's what's coming up in the extended. I hope to see you there. Otherwise, thanks so much for being here with me. If this was your story, please subscribe, because they're just coming out daily at this point. I will hope to see you again in the next reading.